And hey, everybody, welcome to the Paws Up Postgame show. I am Jake Gibson, joined alongside my friend and co host of the show, Kevin Barral. And unfortunately, not good news for FIU in the second half. Things did not go their way, and they ultimately ended up losing this game by a score of 31-7. Kevin, I think FIU defensively looked okay in that second half, but the offense looked, I hate to say it, but abysmal. Okay, could not get anything going on offense to even have a shot at getting back into this game, and it was just a cruise for the Hoosiers in the second half. They didn't have to do much, and they still won by a lot of points.
Yeah, definitely a tough second half for the Panthers offense. Just only 80 total yards of offense. You could have made the case on the defensive side of the ball that they actually looked really good, just allowing 3 points all the way up until the end, where the Hoosiers were able to break out for a big run there for that touchdown. I believe it was I want to say like 80-yard run, something like that. But yeah, tough one for the Panthers. I mean, it's a power conference opponent, not much to expect. Honestly, up until that final touchdown, it had gone a lot better than I honestly had expected. So
Yeah.
you go into now the first game at Pitbull Stadium next Saturday.
Yeah.
You have a 4-game slate where you don't have to take a plane. You don't have to do really too much in terms of travel. Furthest you'll go is to Boca Raton, which will be there.
Mm-hmm.
And should be, honestly, they have a chance to go three-game win streak in these next couple. And, kind of look at last season, how they began the season. They also had 180 yards of total offense against the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs and Keon Jenkins. Hopefully this is probably the worst you'll see him this season. Unfortunately, he was sacked 4 times.
Yeah.
But the Panthers somehow ended up, all right on defense. JoJo Evans, which we chose as our player of the game, with 11 total tackles.
Yeah.
But Dwight Nunu, one of the newcomers, with 7 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack. So did Mr. Jeremy Pasmore, the former Hoosier. He struggled a lot today, nonetheless. Just 1 total tackle. Same thing with Reggie Peterson, who you're used to seeing him rack up close to 10 tackles a game. Unfortunately, just 1 tonight. Was no offense to him, but just inexistent on the defensive side of things. But you were able to see some linebackers really step up, like Dwight Noonan, Elijah Anderson-Taylor, and then at the safety, Shamir Sterling, Brian Blades looked very good defensively. Same thing goes with JoJo Evans and CJ Christian, who led the way with total tackles. So overall, not the worst thing for FIU. Now they're going up against the Central Michigan team, which is closer to what they are going to be used to seeing all season long. So should be fairly, exciting to see what this FIU offense looks like at home in front of the home crowd.
Yeah.
Rushing could have been a lot better for FIU. They could have ran the ball a lot better. They combined just 40 yards rushing.
Something like that, yeah.
53. Keyshawn Owens leading the way with 36 rushing yards and Shamar with 18. Just rough there overall. Rough. I mean, the second half of play was just brutal for FIU.
Brutal.
And again, what needs to be noted is time of possession was just a huge difference. I mean, it was actually a lot closer than it should have been.
27-32.
27-32, obviously Indiana leading that. So overall, tough game. They'll have a good chance to bounce back in these next 3.
Yeah, it's not – thankfully, a big problem that happened last year for FIU when they took on the Power 5 opponent in Arkansas. It came at the latter end of the season when they were still in the midst of a push for bowl eligibility, and that screwed everything up. Now you can at least throw this game out and focus on what's coming up for the Panthers. But man, it felt like there was a bit of optimism, a bit of hope coming out of halftime that okay, FIU was going to get the ball first. Maybe they can make something happen, score some points, get back into this game. But that didn't happen. Why didn't that happen? Was it just a combination of FIU's, again, conservative play calling even when down by a bunch of points, or was it just Indiana's defense just not allowing anything for FIU? Was it a bit of both? Probably a bit of both.
I don't think there was any FIU wasn't very conservative, to be honest with you. I mean, they were going for it on 4th downs when they knew that they had to. I mean, they should have been a lot more successful on 4th downs. They could have been 2 for 4 on the night, just given that penalty there. So it would have been a 50% success rate, I guess. 3rd downs are actually pretty good, converting 4 of them. They had 13 first downs against Indiana's 23. So there's just many different ways you can look at this for FIU.
Yeah.
Defensively, I mean, Indiana was great. They really stepped up on the defensive side. That was the side of the ball that had less questions going into this game.
Yeah.
Aiden Fisher leading the way with 12 total tackles. Jalen Walker with 8. And then you have a couple DBs and And then, just after that, the defensive line really put a lot of pressure in. Again, 4 sacks. The offensive line for FIU was brutal tonight. There's just no other way to say it. Travis Burke had that one moment where he completely just let the guy go at Kiwan.
Yeah.
And Kiwan let him know about that. JD Lee with the personal foul, which overturned that 4th down conversion.
Yeah.
Just a really rough night offensively for FIU. You're getting the kinks out of the way now. You're able to throw this one out, as you said, but definitely a tough game for the Panthers.
Mm-hmm. And something else we have to talk about, the wide receiver 1. That was not answered today on who that could really be. I feel like you'd have to give the slight edge to Patterson just because he was the main target. Five pass attempts, 28 yards, nothing too crazy, but we still don't know who's going to be Jenkins' top target for any aspect of the offense for the Panthers. It's, again, kind of unfortunate to see. Desna Washington had a quiet game. Beers actually had a solid game for what it was worth. Obviously, that one drive, he looked really good. But aside from that, no receiver stood out in this game.
No, not really. And, then you had that play where Kiwan threw that interception. I really think I'm going to have to look back at it, but I want to say that Dean kind of overran that one a little bit. So definitely something worth noting there. And Rocky was the second leading receiver. He ended up with 4 catches for 18 yards and the touchdown. Unfortunately, now he's out. So he will be out. I would assume he's going to be questionable for that week 2 game against.
Might be out for a while. Hamstring injuries
are no joke. Yeah, so he may be out for a couple games. So you're going to have to rely on Josiah Meeman and your ECU transfer with Antonio Ferguson, who didn't see any action today out there. So at least on the offensive side of things. But again, Desert Washington had a pretty good game. I mean, it wasn't all that bad. DJ Washington, really nice game, 2 receptions for 21 yards. But again, they have a lot of work to do. Nana Burris as well got in there, got some action, 1 reception for 12 yards. So FIU, I feel like maybe they're a little bit conservative in offense. They weren't seeing those big plays that you maybe thought you would have seen under Kiwan. But then there were times where Kiwan did have a lot of time. You just couldn't find a single receiver. So there's many ways to look at this loss. I mean, honestly, it could have been a lot worse.
Could have been worse.
It could have been 20 times worse. It could have been worse than the blowout it was.
Yeah.
And honestly, that final, if you would have removed that final touchdown, FIU wouldn't have covered. And
how do you feel about that? I mean, how do you feel about that? Indiana deciding not to just take a knee and the game. They decided to play aggressive, get that extra touchdown. For the bettors out there using Hard Rock Bet, that had his thing. Because FIU are plus 21, you were laughing until that final score. But how do you feel about that?
I mean, at this point, it's like whatever.
It was with their backup as well, too.
Yeah, I mean,
that made that happen.
Honestly, I could see where everyone's coming from at that point. You just knee it, but who really cares, honestly?
Yeah.
We got to see a little bit more of Amari Jones.
I was about to say that it looks like he's going to be the backup.
Seems like he won that backup job. Looked really good towards the back end of the spring and fall. So, good for him. Congrats to him. Very well deserved. And, unfortunately, it'll be a tough flight back, but you got to feel really good where you're going into with the Central Michigan game where JoJo Evans looked really good out there. I was very excited about. I think the safety spot will be a strong suit. And then you have Shamir Sterling rotating in there as well. So I like a lot with what we saw. I'm going to be very interested to see what Coach Max thought were after the game. I'm assuming we're going to get some sort of post game with him, just given it's the Big Ten and all that. So I'm very interested to see what's going on. And definitely I got to hear from Reggie. You got to see what happened there because you don't see that. That's honestly, I want to say that may have been one of his worst games with FIU. And just,
I know.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just, he would tell you the same thing.
I mean, he said he's going to try to break the record. He's not going to do that if he's playing games like this. Now, granted, we're going to do more research in the coming days about Central Michigan, but the talent dispersity from a Big Ten school compared to one of the lower ends of the MAC has to be favorable for FIU. And again, everything was put to the test. Most things did not pass, but at least now you have an idea of what you need to improve on as the fans come in for Pitbull Stadium.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the biggest things, too, was just unable to tackle. I thought that was something that maybe could have been fixed. There were many times where it
took 3 or 4 players just to wrap up some of their runners.
Even more, and that's a big reason why they ended up rushing for 234 yards. So, tough one tonight, but, you played probably the best team you're going to play all year long. Maybe Liberty could challenge you a little bit there, but you got to feel really good where you're at. I mean, going into now a non-con slate that honestly all 3 games are winnable.
Yeah, we saw FIU did not look that great against Michigan State.
They kept it close though.
They kept it close.
They should have won.
Nothing really stuck out. Like there's not a part of their team where you can say, "Wow, I'm really worried about that."
They should have won though.
They should have won. I mean, Michigan State deserved to lose that game. And obviously, we haven't really seen much of Monmouth. I'm guessing they've played already.
I wanna say so.
I want to say yesterday they probably played their game. We'll
I'll
check
look that up
later.
real quick.
Yeah. But your final score for today: Indiana 31, FIU 7.
They lost 42 to 27
to Eastern Washington. Okay, so again, we'll do a bit more research on them, but obviously coming up, Central Michigan over at Pitbull Stadium, pack the pit, and we'll
Pack the cage,
pack the pit. I think more people voted on the pit rather than the cage in that poll.
I have been told that FIU will continue to be using pack the cage,
Okay.
so I suggest you all to do the same.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that.
I prefer the cage.
It's classic.
Let's leave Pitbull Stadium to what it is, and let's keep our traditions alive.
Regardless, be there on next Saturday.
And we will be providing you coverage during the rest of this non-con slate.
Yeah, we're
in
person coverage. If you ever see us, say hey. But yeah, again, final score: Indiana 31, FIU 7. This has been the Paws Up postgame show. Till next time, well, paws up.
Paws up, baby.